change and then be the change. We'll see you guys next time on the TV show Pivotal Change.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Welcome to Vital Signs. I'm your host, Jen Godet, sharing what's real and relevant in healthcare, wellness, and peak human performance, empowering people to take control and advocate for their greatest asset, their health. Remember, this show is for educational purposes only. It is not medical advice. Always seek practitioner advice before changing your particular healthcare routines. I'm super excited about our guest today. Our guest has been working with a holistic approach to healing. He has 42 years of experience, really embodying everything we strive to bring you in this show, optimal human health and performance. Meet David Essel. David is a #1 best-selling author, a counselor, an executive coach, international speaker, fellow radio TV host, sports psychology coach, and so much more. And his mission is to positively impact 2 million people or more every day in every area of life, regardless of their circumstances. David, welcome to the show.
Oh, Jen, it's so awesome to be with you. And it's incredible how our lives are so parallel. I mean, what we did, what we started out earlier in our career, what we're doing now, it's fabulous. And you know, the topic that we have today is something that is absolutely mind-blowing and this country needs so badly. So thank you for inviting me to be part of your program.
Absolutely. So why don't we very briefly share with everyone a little bit about your journey? Like what led you to what you're doing now, helping Americans heal?
Complete suffering. That's the truth. You know, I mean, how I got here, I went through a mountain of to get to where I am today. And I think most people that have any level of success have the similar backstory of something, right? So, you know, I started out as a very angry child. That will go right back to childhood. I started out as a very angry child back in 1956. When I was born to 59, I was having all kinds of emotional issues, and they didn't have the diagnostic tools for a 3-year-old to figure out that he was struggling with some serious mental health issues. And honestly, Jen, you know, until 1990, when I had a failed suicide attempt, it was the first time that I went through mental health testing, and we found a boatload of issues. Now, I had covered them up with addiction for a number of years. I'm just going to be flat out honest with everyone here. You know, I didn't get here the easy route. I'm sure there's an easier route that I didn't bother taking it, you know, but so I had all these issues. And in 1990, I failed at a suicide attempt, and that literally changed my life. That turned my mind, even though I was always into mental health and everything, that really blew it apart. But if we back up from how I got from age 3 to 1990, you know, I was an athlete in high school. I ended up being a walk-on at Syracuse University basketball, playing for 2 years, and then was offered a full scholarship. Basketball was my life, you know. So when I got out of college and started working with professional athletes, as you have in the past, you know, worked with college athletes, professional athletes. And then in 1990, just the year that after I had the suicide attempt, I realized I was burned out. I was traveling 40 weeks a year, working with athletes all over the place, speaking at conferences all over the world, and I had fried myself out, which is one of the things that led to the failed suicide attempt. So, you know, I say that a lot of suffering got me here today because that's the truth. You know, most of us aren't willing to walk that road of suffering, to find out who we really are and what we can truly do. You know, one of my earliest mentors was Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale, you know, died in the late 80s. Nightingale Conant was his legacy. It was an incredible audio program that you could subscribe to, you know, and when I was with him in the 80s and I ended up being a part of his program, I did a series with Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy is another phenomenal individual. If you ever have never heard of him, oh my gosh, check him out. His story is just phenomenal. But, you know, what we want to do is look at these things and say, this is just life. All this is life. It's not that I've been picked on to go through these things. You know, I mean, a lot of it is self-created if we want to be honest with ourselves, right? But, you know, Earl Nightingale said in 1980 that 7% of the world's population is here to maximize their potential. And 93% are here to wait until they die. They're passing time. About a year ago, a new study came out. And it upgraded a little bit. 10% of people on this planet are now here to maximize their potential. What does that mean? It means they'll walk through walls to do what they're supposed to do here. It means they'll recover from addictions. It means they'll recover from bankruptcy, from divorce, from everything. I know that's maximizing your potential. You know, you let go of victimhood. You quit blaming the world for what you don't have. You take full responsibility. This is maximum potential. You take a ton of freaking risks if you want to maximize your potential. You fail a ton if you want to maximize your potential. You know, so very few people, Jen, want to go down this roadway. You and I are here as leaders. Now, I'm not saying that arrogantly at all. I'm just saying that confidently. Jen and I are here to give our best experiences. Now, they may not be your experiences, but what we both hope is that you'll pick up one nugget today that you can walk forward with and say, God, if, you know, David went through this and Jen expressed this, you know, like, why can't I? And I want to mention something else. I have no special powers that you don't. There is not a damn thing that David Essel has that's an edge in life other than a desire to help people. That's the thing that brought me back from the failed suicide attempt. That's what brought me back from bankruptcy. That's what brought me back from divorce. That's what brought me back from a 30-year addiction. I could go on and on. It's that belief that I'm here for a reason. I found the reason, and now I put everything in my power into it. And then we fast forward to 2024. You know, we have 16 books, 5 #1 bestsellers. I have no experience in the world of journalism, broadcast journalism, literature, not at all. I've been on radio and TV for 35 years. I have no background in broadcast journalism or journalism at all. I say that because I don't have anything special. Most of what I have created in life that people would call success, radio shows, TV shows, podcasts, books, et cetera, was simply because I had a desire to help people heal.
And you know, it's life experience, David. Like what I'm hearing very strongly, and if you're listening to this at home, David and I are just two people who are very passionate about helping others. And so we do whatever it takes to be able to show up and to deliver that and to help other people. You know, I love your story. I love everything that you said. And for those of you at home, like the big takeaway is there's nothing special about me. There's nothing special about David. We just show up every day and work to be the best that we can be so that we can help other people. And we do that in our own ways. And you probably do that in your own way. Whether it's showing up for your family or your friends or yourself, it doesn't really matter. You just want to grab a hold to why you're here and what you want to show up for and what you want to share or contribute to the world. And that's what can get us through anything. So David, I really want to dive into the first conversation because we went through a pandemic and it really shook up mental health. We were forced to isolate. We were forced to not be as social creatures as we are now. I know you're in Florida and I'm in Texas, so we weren't as bad as
Right.
many of the other places. But talk to me a little bit about that because the pandemic has had a significant and not just significant, but lingering impact on
Yeah.
everyone's mental health. There's increased anxiety, depression, substance abuse. Can you share some of the key mental health challenges you're seeing today and why you think they're pervasive since that event?
Yeah. I'll tell you, Jen, it's getting worse. We see it. I mean, I've been in private practice for 45 years. The last 5 years, we have never seen so many people addicted to porn. We have never seen as many people addicted to alcohol. When the COVID hit, alcohol sales online went up 1,000%, and it's still around there. It hasn't dropped that much. So when people say, "Oh, thank God COVID is over," the lingering effects of COVID are not even touched. Look at the recent murder in the high school. And I'm not saying that that's directly COVID related, but it's mental health related. One of my best friends is Scarlett Lewis. Scarlett Lewis's son, Jesse, 14 years ago, was murdered in the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre.
Mhm.
I can't imagine what she went through. 8 months after his murder, I contacted her and said, "Scarlett," I was on Sirius XM at the time, and I said, "Scarlett, whenever you're ready, honey, I want to have you on. This is so important to talk about. You're a brilliant woman. You don't rush it. Just whenever. It's only been 8 months. Whenever you're ready." And she said, "You've been opening this Saturday." And I said, "What?" And she said, "David, this word has to get out there." So I bring her on the show, and I interviewed her before in other formats, and I said, "Scarlett, first of all, I just have to tell the audience, I'm blown away at your strength." And I introduced her and told her that it's only been 8 months since Jesse was massacred. I'll tell you something beautiful about this, if there is something beautiful, and there is a beautiful part of every tragedy, whether people want to admit it or not. And if you don't want to admit it, that's fine. I do believe that to be true. When the shooter came into the school and was nearing Jesse's first grade classroom, Jesse got out of his chair, ran to the front of the room, and screamed at everyone to get in the closets.
Mm.
His screaming attracted the gunman, who immediately mowed him down. Jesse Lewis is a hero.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That story gave me just chills, and you're absolutely right. And we see that time and time again. In times of crisis, people will step up to the plate to protect other people. We are getting close to our break, and so before we break, what is one thing that people can do and take away from this story today and start to like noodle on so that they can take a step forward?
This is going to sound really strange, but it's all about forgiveness. Adam Lanza's the murderer. He was the killer. And one of the things that Scarlett Lewis has said every time I've interviewed her is that if I did not forgive him, he would own me for the rest of my life. So forgiveness is the key, Jen. And we can talk more, but it's crucial. And a lot of people don't want to go there.
I completely concur. We are going to leave on that note, folks. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks us and our happiness. It is a choice. We do have to take a brief break, but we will be right back after these messages.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you. Call 800-749-7781. That's 800-749-7781. Call now.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives. If you're struggling with your own tax nightmare, we've got great news. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
Do you have diabetes? If you have insurance, you may qualify for a new continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends, spend more time in range, significantly lower your A1C, and share important data with loved ones and caregivers. Most importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Take charge of your health. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and have seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for a CGM today. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances cover continuous glucose monitors, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the CGM Health Hotline now.
Welcome back to Vital Signs. I am here with David Essel, and we are going to dive right into the topic that we have been discussing. Before the break, we touched on, the pervasive nature of mental health challenges that have just been escalating, that are lingering since the pandemic. And you shared a really powerful story. And we ended the break on forgiveness and how forgiveness is a choice. It's something that we can choose to do so that whatever that is we're holding on to doesn't own us anymore. But man, it's hard, David. Like, forgiveness is hard. Let's be real. And for everyone sitting at home, like, what are some ways that they can begin this step? Because it's a challenge for most humans to take that forgiveness step.
Yeah. And the problem is our small ego. The ego is divided into two. Nothing is one part. Okay. There's nothing that's just one. Everything has an opposing side. So when people talk about ego, unfortunately, talk about it incorrectly, because if you say, well, he's got a big ego, everyone already is thinking negativity. Oh, she wears all the jewelry, she's got a big ego. But there's a small ego that's what we're talking about. And the small ego has that desire to be right. That small ego says, I'm not going to forgive them. They cheated on me. Why am I going to forgive them? And I've worked, and we'll get into relationships, and I'll share the story for that. But, and same with Scarlett Lewis. I mean, her son was murdered, and in 8 months, she had 75% forgiven Adam Lanza. But let me make this comment, because forgiveness is not turning the other cheek. I'm so sorry for people who think that's forgiveness. That's nonsense. That's called fantasy forgiveness. If you think turning the other cheek is going to help you forgive someone who's betrayed you, hurt you deeply, you're barking up the wrong tree. It'll never work. You'll be pissed off in 30 days or whenever you're triggered again, and that person will own you. And I could tell you so many stories of people that 30 years after a divorce are still upset with their former husband, wife, whatever. And I say, it's time I'm not going to let him off the hook. Let's remember the most important point, ladies and gentlemen. When you forgive someone who's betrayed you, you've let yourself off the hook. The other person doesn't have to know a thing. When I work with people with forgiveness and coming to closure, we don't do what we did in the 80s and 90s in therapies where we get them together and that's all nonsense. It's a waste of time. We're peeing on each other. No one wins. Everyone walks away more pissed than they came in the room. So we say, no. Don't even tell your former partner or your child or whoever it is that's betrayed you. You don't have to tell them you're doing this work. Just do the work. However, the work that we teach has multiple steps. And the first step I'll share, and then the rest of it, if people want help, they can contact me. But this is a very unusual first step. And we created this 30 years ago. The final 4 steps of forgiveness is what we call it. Step number 1, believe it or not, is writing all of your rage and anger at the person that betrayed you. Every day, a letter that is only given to me, the professional, and to my client, until they get to a place called desensitization, which means when they go to write, and I can't believe you did, David, I'm bored as heck. Okay, I'm bored writing. When we reach desensitization, now we can go to forgiveness. But if we don't remove that anger, that rage, that resentment, that vindictiveness, you will never forgive. So we actually have people go in and rewrite about those things. I remember on our first Christmas together when, you came in drunk, and we get all that rage and anger out, right? And then phase 2 is the beautiful phase. And that's when we finish the forgiveness part. Oh my God, Jen, our hearts explode. We have more compassion for us and others. And if you notice something, I said we have more compassion for us first before I said others, because we've done the work. Let that person go, so they will not, as Scarlett Lewis said so beautifully, they will not own me. And how we know we've completely forgiven someone is when their name is brought up. There's no turmoil in the stomach. There's no emotional reaction. When we see them in a store or something, there's no emotional reaction. Really quickly, when I forgave my wife when I went through a divorce, and I hadn't seen her for about 9 months, and the divorce was really nasty. And I had to do a whole bunch of work, and I did. And at the 9-month mark, I was at a facility, never imagining I'd run into her because I had moved to another city. And sure enough, who comes walking across? She looks at me. Her eyes are this big, like, oh, my Lord. And I looked and I said, oh, my gosh, Angel, come here. And she looked at me and she backed up a little. I go, no, come here, seriously. And she comes walking over and I hugged her and I said, I love you. I think you're amazing. We weren't meant to be together, but I can still love you. I hope you have a beautiful day. And Jen, anyone can get here. This is called work. I wrote letters of anger for 60 days, right? Every day. And you did this and you did, and calling her names and doing everything else. And it was only me and my therapist that would ever read this stuff, right? And then I got to a place where I was completely forgiving her for everything she did. And when we reunited, and my mentor was standing next to me, and he knew everything that had happened during our marriage and divorce. And when she walked away, he looked at me and he said, I have never seen anything close to this in my life. How did you do that? And, we can forgive anyone for anything. At a Miami Heat basketball game, one of the most profound things happened. A survivor of Auschwitz stood at center court. I'm getting chills at a national basketball game. And she said, I am here for one reason, and that is to share my love. Adolf Hitler killed my entire family. I escaped. I know Mr. Hitler was suffering deeply in order to do what he did. And I have completely forgiven him. My heart is open to Mr. Hitler. And I ask you, as you sit here listening to me, wondering, could I ever do this? The answer is yes. And you may want to start today. May you have a beautiful life filled with forgiveness. And she walked off the court. Unbelievable, Jen.
It actually absolutely is. I remember that actually. And you know, it's really powerful when we're able to feel the emotions. So folks, if you're listening to this at home, what David is not saying is don't feel the emotions. What David is saying is feel the emotions, process the emotions on paper every single day until you no longer experience the emotions. That's what desensitization is. And once we hit that point, then you can take the next step. If you're looking for next steps, contact him. We'll share how to contact him at the end of today's episode. But it's really important that we do that. And I want to highlight that when we go through this process and we experience the emotions and we work through this in that way, what we're doing is giving ourselves the greatest gift. We're giving ourselves the gift of growth and self-compassion and self-love. And we must do that in order to provide that for others. So David, that was really powerful. The action step for today, start today. If you're hanging on to anger, if you're hanging on to any kind of emotional trauma, start writing that letter. Just write that letter, put all the things down. You don't ever have to share that with anyone else. Just start doing that on a daily basis so you can move towards your healing and move through those emotions and process them. But I want to kind of turn this conversation a little bit because we talked a little bit about mental health in a broad standpoint. But one of the things that has really stood out over the last couple of years, specifically post-pandemic, is the struggles that we're seeing in relationships. And I work with entrepreneurs all day long, and especially if it's a married couple or they're very busy. What's happening is a lot of extra friction, and I think that's because we have to process through. So I would love your perspective as a relationship counselor. What are some of the key issues that you see people facing in their relationships right now? And do you have any advice you would give to couples or families who are trying to rebuild a healthier relationships after such a difficult period? And let's be real, we're still in it. The economic challenges, we haven't left the post-pandemic challenges that we're facing.
And Jen, you know, and let me back what you just said. I mean, and I mentioned this earlier, I see our mental health issues in this country getting worse, not better. And we're 4 years relieved from supposedly the worst part of COVID, right? But I made this analogy the minute COVID started because I've been in this business for so freaking long. When a veteran of war comes home and does not immediately get into heavy duty therapy, and they wait 4 or 5 years, their PTSD, their depression, their anxiety, their trauma is going to be 4 to 5 years deeper in the cells of their body. COVID is no different. For those of us that are struggling with depression, anxiety, anger, irritability, all of these things that are all over the country, you know, if you've waited for COVID to get over before you take care of the mental health addiction issues, it's too late in order to do it in the proper way. Now, it's not too late to get sober. It's not too late to save a marriage, but it's too late to expect it to happen fast. I mean, we've waited 5 years. It's been embedded, all of these habits, and we're going to go into the subconscious mind, right? So the conscious mind is watching us right now saying, oh my God, Jen is brilliant. David is okay. And the conscious mind is sitting there going, I'm judging this, I'm judging that, I'm judging this, I'm judging that. I'm on this podcast. I'm here to learn something. That's the conscious mind. I looked at my watch. I made sure I'm here to watch the podcast and I'm here. This is consciousness, right? The subconscious is totally freaking different, man. The subconscious is only working off the data we put into it. So when COVID hit and couples started not working as much, staying at home 24/7, hating to be in that prison of home for 24/7, having to be with their kids for 24/7 and their wife for 24/7. And as I've written in a brand new book on permanent alcohol recovery, you know, they start to lean on substances. Like the human brain, when it's taken out of its normal level of activity, the normal routine, right? It gets stuck in the stress and it looks for an outlet. So I can't leave the house. I can't go to work. Well, let me have a couple drinks at 2. I'm just going to relax in the afternoon. I don't have to go to a boss. I can still be online and have a couple drinks. No one would know, right? And I write in the book about how many couples the 3rd and 4th year, just last year and the year before, after COVID, are coming to me with serious addiction problems and relationship issues, right? So, we've got to look at our role. When we're in a struggle in a relationship, the very first thing we do is we look at our partner's role.
Yep.
We should be looking at our role first.
That's
See,
right.
this is the 10%. These are the people, the 10% of people that are going to maximize their potential, right? They're going to go, okay, I know that she or he has got some kind of crap going down with our relationship, but what am I doing that's not helping? What am I impatient? Am I drinking too much? Am I eating too much? Am I smoking? Am I doing too much pot? What is it? You know, that's my role. Have I shut down? Have I isolated? Am I overly aggressive? Am I not sitting and listening? You know, like all of these things have to come from us. If we expect that our partner needs therapy and once she or he gets it, we'll be fine, we're screwed. It'll never work, right?
You're absolutely right. And we do have to take a brief break, but what I am hearing loud and clear is, hey, look, folks, if something is wrong with a relationship, look in the mirror first. If we point the finger, we've got all these other bad boys pointing right back at us. It's about how can we show up, because that's what we can control. And we're going to dive into what you can do to move forward after these messages.
What if you could make a free phone call and reduce your car payment by as much as $83 a month? Right now, you could be paying as high as 20% interest. Your new interest rate could be reduced to as low as 2.48%. You can refinance any existing car loan or leased car and save money every month. Take 5 minutes of your time right now. Make this free phone call and learn how to save hundreds of dollars a year by refinancing your existing car loan.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help the vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
Welcome back to Vital Signs. If you're just tuning in, you're going to want to go to nowmedia.tv, click on shows, pull down Vital Signs, and catch the first half of today's show. Why? Because it has been pure gold. I am here talking with David Essel. He has got over 40 years of experience in counseling and really helping you become the absolute most amazing human being that you can. We've talked a little bit about what's happened, what's going on with mental health. We've already had some fantastic action steps. And before the break, David, we were talking a little bit about relationship health. And the first thing we want to do when things aren't going right in our relationships is we want to look at our partner and point the finger and say, you did this and you did that, and this is not working, when actually all these other fingers are pointing at us. And so you shared that looking in the mirror is what's most important for us to do, but sometimes it's really hard to do objectively. And sometimes we think we're doing that, but maybe we're missing the boat a little bit. Can you shed a little light on what we can do when we're in that kind of relationship challenge, so that we can get that awareness and move forward?
Jen, looking in the mirror and being brutally honest with ourselves is one of the most difficult things any person could ever tackle, right? I mean, because listen, there's a part of the brain that's the small ego. Let me describe really quickly. So the small ego is righteousness. It's the need to be right. You have to be right. The irritability, the arrogance, all the nonsense in the world is in the small ego, right? But the big ego is the opposite. The big ego is humility, compassion, Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, service. I mean, the big ego is all about, let me be honest to make this world the best I can be. So let's go right to your question. So you're having a struggle with your relationship. And as Jen said, and I agree 1,000%, very first thing we do is we relieve ourselves of any responsibility. It ain't me, it's you. And that'll never work. And we've been doing it for years. It's never worked for years. Why do we keep repeating? I don't know. But here's your answer. So we write down, in all honesty, what have I been doing that has sabotaged this marriage, this relationship? What am I doing? Am I staying at work too late on purpose? Am I just not coming home because I don't want to be home, but I don't want to be honest, so I'm saying I have all these projects to do? Am I in an emotional affair with someone? Am I maybe not having sex, but I'm sharing how, my wife is a pain in the butt or my husband's a pain, and that's an emotional affair. Emotional affairs are just as damaging as physical affairs. Don't try to get away with thinking that you can share the struggles of intimacy with someone else. And we say, how do you know if it's an emotional affair? If your partner was standing there and you wouldn't say what you're saying right now, you're already in an emotional affair. That's called betrayal. Right. So I just wanted to open up this whole thing of which side of the ego are we working on? If you're going to work from the small ego, it's all their fault. But we're going to the big ego, and the big ego is humility. So we take a piece of paper and we write down what we've done to sabotage the relationship. And then we look at one that we're definitely going to change. Now, this is the key. You have to be willing to change that one attribute, that one belief system, that one habit that is sabotaging, that you have to be able to change it. But first, you need to tell your partner, honey, I've been thinking about something. We've been struggling for 6 months. We're arguing a lot, probably drinking too much. We're not getting along. We have no compassion for each other. And I found one role that I have that is completely screwing us up. And it's this. I'm going to be honest with you. This is what it is. And I'm going to get help for it. And I'm going to work on it. Because if I can take care of this one step, that's my responsibility, it has nothing to do with you, I think we can come one step closer to be able to communicate without argument. I love you very much. I'm going to work really hard, and I hope we can turn this around, love. That statement will blow a partner away in one of two directions. They'll either say, oh, you've been talking that you're going to change for years and you're never going to change, and I've heard this so many times, and if they say that, say, you know what, you're right. But this time it's different. This time I'm hiring a professional. This time I'm going to put the work in. So you see, we come in that way, and eventually, and I haven't seen it change in 45 years, eventually our partner will soften if we follow through with our words. But if we're going to cry wolf again and say, I will never do this again, and we do it again, our partner will never respect us, nor should they. Listen, I'm on the side of your partner right now. If you said 10 times, I'm going to quit drinking and you never have. If you said 10 times, I'm going to get off porn and you don't. If you said 10 times, I'm going to stop spending so much money and you don't, your partner will not respect you, nor should they respect you. The only thing that should be respected is not your freaking words, but what is behind the words called action. So when this person comes to the partner and says, I'm going to own this. This is my fault. This has nothing to do with you. And I've already set up a session with a professional to get this going. There is a darn good chance that your partner is going to be shocked out of their freaking mind. And that could start the rolling ball to bringing us back together. And we've seen it happen so many times, Jen. I don't give up on anyone. Let me really quickly. I'm working with a couple. They're going into their 65th wedding anniversary. And the husband says, you know what? You don't agree with me on certain political things. You don't agree with me on certain other things in life, and I'm sick of it. We're not having a 65th wedding anniversary. What? That's the mental state that the country is in. There was no affair, there was nothing, but this gentleman does not have emotional regulation or control of his emotions. So instead of saying, I'm really stressed, I'm frustrated with this, I'm frustrated with that, can we find a way out of it? He immediately said, I'm going to penalize you. I'm going to hurt you. And I have them both on the phone, and I gave them both the same exercise. I said, for next week, this is what you're going to do. For the wife, I want you to write down all the reasons you should end this marriage and divorce him, and all the reasons you should stay. And for the husband, same thing. All the reasons you're going to divorce her and be on your own, and all the reasons you stay.
And what happens?
And the next week, the husband says, wow, I could never live without you. I am so sorry. I'll continue doing the work. And the wife said, I love you so much, but I cannot tolerate what's been going on. I will stay with you. Please do the work. And we had an incredible session. I mean, this guy opened up, and let me make this other mention to you. The older we get, it is true, can be harder to change long-held beliefs. It's just a fact. I mean, it's a fact of anything. Alcohol, negativity, the desire to be right. I mean, you name it. Anything that you've held long-term as a belief that I am right and the world is wrong, or I'm right and whatever it is, can be changed. There's no length of time that you can be an addict that you can't heal, or you can be obstinate or arrogant or narcissistic on the scale, at least, and not, you can heal. It's a matter of what Jen and I have been talking about. Do you want to be in the 10% of maximizing your potential, which means you're going to do what 90% of the rest of the world will never do? That's maximizing your potential. So think deeply. Most of the world wouldn't go to a partner when you're arguing and say, I found something that's my fault and I'm going to get help. 10% of the world would do that. Now, because of the show, why don't we up it to 90% of the world? Why don't you trust Jen and I that we have some ideas that could really help you? We've been in this business for a long time, and try it. There's nothing bad that can happen by going to your partner and saying, I found something that I'm doing, I have to stop. There's only good stuff that can happen when you go. Now, I say good stuff. If you go with this open, humble heart and your partner rejects you over and over and over again, you can walk away with your head high. You can walk away saying, I did my best. I have no regrets. And you'll go into the next relationship a totally changed person.
You know what, David, you're absolutely right. And what I want to really emphasize here that you've said is we're taking ownership of our role. That is what we have control over. That is what we can do. And if we're in a situation like this, and I really want to stress this because, David, you said this, is that if we do everything in our power and it still doesn't work, we don't need to keep turning the cheek. It's time for us to walk away. And that's absolutely acceptable and perfect. But when we step up to the plate, when we take accountability and responsibility over our own actions, what we're doing is leading by example. Something we talk about a lot on this show. We lead by example. And then when we do that and we set the impactful boundaries so that we're able to continue moving forward, and we say, you know what, I've done this, I've brought this to the table, but there's been no change and I'm done, then we know that we showed up and we're living above the line. We're leading by example. We're doing everything, and we're not turning the other cheek. So that at that point in time, it turns into, you know what, I love you, but I'm going to let you go because it's just not healthy for me anymore. We do have to break really briefly, but I want to remind you, there's a couple of action steps that have already been dropped. If you didn't write them down before, write them down now. It's time to start writing a daily letter. If you're holding on to anger or any of those emotions, write everything down, feel the feels, and do that every single day until you no longer feel anything when you bring that topic up. And then remember that anytime there's a conflict, whether it's business, life, it doesn't matter. Always look in the mirror first. Don't point the finger, because there's a bunch of those guys pointing back, and ask, how can I show up and improve myself and how I come to this relationship and lead by example? We will be right back for more amazingness after these messages.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
Llama a tu amigo Trip Amigo. Una llamada a Trip Amigo te consigue el billete más barato a cualquier destino. Solo dinos a dónde quieres ir y Trip Amigo busca entre cientos de miles de ofertas disponibles en billetes aéreos y hospedaje también. Nuestros clientes ahorran hasta el 75% en las tarifas aéreas y reservaciones de hoteles. Llama ahora mismo. Tu amigo Trip Amigo te consigue los mejores precios de billetes aéreos y hotel.
Artritis, inflamación, reuma, dolores articulares, dolores musculares, dolores, muchos dolores, una solución. Be Miracle, el milagro de vivir sin dolor. Hace más de 2400 años, los griegos descubrieron los poderes desinflamatorios de la apitoxina, el veneno de las abejas, que es 100 veces más poderosa que la cortisona, pero sin sus efectos secundarios. Be Miracle, la fórmula original con apitoxina 100% natural, el milagro de vivir sin dolor.
Yo me acostumbré a vivir con dolor y con alta presión. Fue como un milagro. Empecé a tomar la capsulita de veneno de abejas y se me calmó el dolor, mi presión está normal y hasta el carácter me cambió.
A nosotros nos gustaba pasear, caminar, bailar, ir a la discoteca, pero nos llegó la artritis y nos lo arruinó todo. Y ahora, tomando una capsulita diaria del veneno de la abeja, volvemos a disfrutar de la vida.
Y gracias a este milagro podemos ser felices.
Be Miracle, frena la artrosis, rejuvenece las articulaciones, desinflama y elimina el dolor. Ya basta de dolores musculares, ya basta de dolores articulares, ya basta de sufrir.
Con una cápsula diaria del veneno de abejas, volví a vivir sin dolores.
Be Miracle. Llame ahora y reciba 2 meses de Be Miracle en oferta especial. Ordena 2 y recibe 3 meses de tratamiento. Pero si llama ahora mismo con su orden, recibirá la crema Be Miracle de acción inmediata completamente gratis. Para ese dolor rebelde y localizado que a veces aparece, pero tiene que marcar ahora. Be Miracle. Una cápsula por día. El milagro de vivir sin dolor toda la vida.
Welcome back to Vital Signs. I am Jen Godet here with David Essel, and we have had a phenomenal conversation today. We have talked about mental health challenges that have faced our entire population since the pandemic. We talked a lot about relationships. We've talked about healing and forgiveness. We dropped some action steps. And David, I want to get some clarity on something that you mentioned earlier. It came up a couple of times in your examples, but you mentioned emotional regulation. And honestly, I think it was mentioning the fact that people lacked emotional regulation. That's usually how it comes up. And most people maybe don't know what that term means. So can you talk a little bit about what is emotional regulation? How do we heal our attitude so that we can cope with the challenges that life faces?
Yeah. You know, emotional regulation is sort of just the definition of what it sounds like, is that when you're triggered, when you feel yourself getting, feeling guilt or shame or anger or rage or resentment or something like that. I mean, the body gives us signs before we react. I mean, there's a turning of the stomach, there's an increase in irritability, right? I mean, the physical body is really giving us all the warning signs necessary to say, hey, you're in an emotional state and you don't have control. So emotional regulation says when I'm triggered by my partner, without responding right away, I'm going to hesitate. I'm going to pull back for a second, and I'm going to evaluate the situation. And I'm going to say, well, can you say that again? Because I'm not quite sure where you're going with emotion regulation. Like that's called active listening, what I just did, right? So someone asks you a question or says something, you say, can you go a little further with that? I'm not quite sure what you're asking me. Okay. Emotional regulation gives you that space. You know, can you, I mean, which Saturday are you talking about, honey? We've been doing things on different Saturdays. I just want to know what you're talking about. And the purpose of emotional regulation is to give us a little bit of a break before we respond. This is crucial to things that trigger us. Let's say that, you know, that you drink on a regular basis, but you don't feel you have a problem with it. And someone says, hey, you know, I see that when we went out the other night, you had like 6 drinks. And, you know, do you think there's a problem? The person who's emotionally regulated would say, you know, I didn't think I had 6. Yeah, if I had 6, I don't think I want to go there. You know, that's the person with emotional regulation who's open to someone else's opinion, who's not so self-centered that they always have to be right, that doesn't feel because someone's asking a question, they're putting their back against the wall. The person with emotional regulation says they're asking because they care. They're asking because they're interested. They're asking, you know, whatever it might be. So, you know, Ram Dass, who was a great teacher of mine, gave me this really quick, simple example in 1980 of emotional regulation. 2 people going to the airport, separate roads, separate cars. An hour and a half before the flight was going to go off, they turn on the radio and there's been a major traffic accident. And they both say, oh my God, I'm going to miss my flight. The emotionally regulated person smashes their hand. Now listen. The emotionally regulated person smashes their hand on the dashboard, says, gosh darn it, then gets on the phone, makes a new call, calls their husband, wife, whatever it might be, says, honey, I'm going to be coming home in an hour, you know, and makes the call to wherever they were flying to, right? And then takes the afternoon off if they can't do anything else. The non-emotionally regulated person freaks out. They smash the dashboard. They call and say, do you believe it? The one time I'm going to be early in the airport and this crap happens. They call screaming at the airlines. They call you. It's a mess. They have no emotional control. So we teach this in every person that I work with. Emotional regulation is just one of those natural things we teach. Rarely have we been taught this as children. Rarely have we been taught how to handle the lack of forgiveness of someone, or how to handle when, you know, we're kicked out of a clique. We're used to being with this certain group, and then for whatever reason, you know, they banish us. Well, this is emotional regulation. For that child to be taught how to handle it, and the number one thing parents need to do when a child is in that situation is listen and ask questions. Honey, tell me what you're feeling. Really, why are you so angry? Why? And so we're teaching them that it's okay to have anger, rage, shame, whatever it might be, right? This is emotional regulation. You're teaching your children that it's okay to emote, that it's okay to share the truth. You know, most parents will say, oh, honey, you know, Jimmy wasn't that good of a kid anyway. You know, he always gets in trouble. You'll find someone much better. Oh, those girls, they didn't really like you anyway. You'll find better girls. That's stuffing your child's pain down its throat. Instead, let them express. You don't have to have answers to solve it. Just, honey, thank you so much for sharing what you're feeling. If you're feeling like this later on tonight, can we talk again? Oh my God, when parents do this, Jen, their children blow up. They go, oh my God, it's safe to be me. It's safe to be angry in this safe environment. It's safe to be hurt, sad, rejected. I can be rejected, talk about it. And my mom and dad's going to say, oh, don't worry about it. You're young. That really wasn't love. And let me tell you something. You can fall in love at 10. That's not wasted love. We've been given love at birth. We can fall in love at 3, 4, 5, 6. So when a parent says, oh, honey, you're only 12, that's puppy love. Don't ever say that to a child. That's their reality. Allow them to be real. Allow them to feel love, and then allow them to feel pain that's often associated with love, because that's life, man. You know, there's no ball of cherries or bowl of cherries in this damn world. You're going to go through pits, through seeds. You're going to go through rotten cherries. You're going to go through it all. And if a child is equipped with the emotional regulation techniques that we're talking about, how to express anger correctly, shame, guilt, vindictiveness, resentment, you're going to have an amazingly different child.
You're absolutely right when you say that, and I'm a grandparent, so people know that on this show, and what I have witnessed over the decades is a lot of times adults don't know how to emotionally regulate themselves. We don't have those mechanisms, and we're raising children, so we just keep passing that along. So for the adults who are in the room who are like, wow, I've never had a safe adult, so they've never had that example, what is one thing that the parents watching or the adults watching, what is one thing they can do, one small step that they can take to move forward so that they can start to regulate and then have those appropriate responses? I know you said press pause, but give me something that can help them to feel safe and secure while they let that emotion pass them through. Take that breath, whatever that is.
Yeah, well, actually, there's a couple things you can do. Number one would be to say to your partner, our conversation right now is creating a lot of anxiety. And I'm feeling anxious and I'm feeling like I want to shoot back something at you, but I don't want to go south with our relationship. I don't want to go south. So, honey, I'm going to take an hour. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm just going to drive to the car. And when I come back, can we try this again? Can we talk again? I just think we both need to have some space, or maybe we wait till tomorrow at noon to talk about it, whatever it is. But that's emotional regulation. That's separating us from the instantaneous, knee-jerk, subconscious reaction that we've been doing our whole life, probably. When someone challenges us on something, we immediately have to push back. I'll give you an example of emotional regulation for me when I'm doing interviews, especially television interviews. Reporters love to try to pull me into some type of political conversation, right? And I don't do politics at all. And so it happened recently where a reporter said, well, David, we're talking about mental health and all these people are arguing on politics. What side of the political system are you on? And I said, neither. And they said, well, what's your opinion of what's going on in the political scene right now? I said, let me be honest with you. I'm not educated in the political system. I don't study it. I don't know enough about it to give you a really great response. I stay in my wheelhouse, and my wheelhouse has nothing to do with politics. What else can I help you with today? And I just completely disarm it. I'm not going to get pulled into something that I'm not knowledgeable. And I'm telling the truth. I don't follow politics. I only care about helping people heal. And some people say, "No, you're ignorant. You need to know what's going on in the world." No, I really don't. Everything I need to know, I find out through my practice, through my speaking, through my TV, radio, podcast appearances, through my one-on-one clients. I know enough about the world. I don't need to watch the news. I don't need to have a political opinion. And if someone asked me about what's the best way to bake a chocolate cake, I'd say the same thing about politics. I don't have enough experience baking chocolate cakes to know what's the best way to do it.
Well,
and my humility and knowing what my strengths and weaknesses are, everyone should know your strengths and weaknesses.
I couldn't agree more. It's really important for us to stay in our wheelhouse. And what I'm hearing loud and clear is when you feel triggered, when you have that emotional response, it is okay to step away. In fact, it's the best path forward. Take a breath, step away, regather your thoughts, and then come back when you're able to have a clear, not unemotional, but like take the emotions out, the emotionality out of it, so that you can have more of an objective approach and come to the table. That's how true negotiation and every conversation and conflict can be resolved. We do have to, and unfortunately, all good things come to an end, including the show. But how can people reach out to you if they would like to learn more, if they've really found that maybe they fit in some of these boxes, maybe they don't have a safe adult that they can do this, or would like to learn some of these coping techniques? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, talkdavid.com is the website. The easiest thing to remember, because that's all I do, Jen, is talk. So it's the easy thing, talkdavid.com. We have 5 of our #1 best-selling books for free on the website. So go to the website, get all 5 books free, and you will start an education that will change your life. If you want to work with me one-on-one, we actually, because of inflation that you and I have been talking about, we do have specials to help people who are struggling with inflation. We've cut down the price and the fees on several of our programs. So go to talkdavid.com, and if you want to work on anything Jen and I have talked about today, we will help you get to the place you've always want to be. And in my opinion, that's in that top 10% that's willing to do what 90% of people don't want to do. And by following your heart and coming to the plate with honesty and with the changes you want to make, you can make any change in the world, Jen.
Absolutely. No better words to end today's amazing episode with. Go to David's website, check out his books. Let's move forward powerfully together, because imagine if every human being was taking in these concepts and putting them into play. We wouldn't have all of the conflict that we see today. So be the change you want to see in the world. Be that leader. You can do it. Doesn't matter where you are. It only takes starting today. We had several action steps. Pick one, do it, because that's how we move ourselves, our peak human performance, our health forward. Thank you so much, David, for your expertise. And unfortunately, this does come to an end, but the good news is we'll be here same time, same station next week. Until then, have an amazing rest of your day.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.